What's up, everybody, and welcome to E-Commerce Masters. I'm Ethan Giffin, your host, and I'm so excited to have an awesome guest here today with us, Lance Owide, who is the GM of B2B at BigCommerce. Lance and I have known each other for quite some time. We see each other throughout the year on the conference circuit, and I'm so excited to have him sit down in the chair today to talk all things B2B e-com. Lance, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am great. Thank you, Ethan, for having me on. I'm excited to be chatting with you today on all things B2B e-commerce.
Awesome. And I am so excited. For our listeners out there listening over the audio, you might want to head on over to our YouTube channel. We are a video first podcast, so anything visual that we're going to be putting on screen today, you won't catch, over the audio, but you can see it on the video. So give us a like, give us a subscribe, leave us a comment, and we love it all. So Lance, let's get to it. So how about you tell everybody a little bit, what's been your path to commerce? How did you get into this industry?
Yeah, I have a little bit of a different path, I think, to some and maybe to most. I started my career working for UBS Investment Bank, so in the banking space. Great fun, learned an awful lot. My next step was into private equity. I worked for a company called Apollo, actually doing a lot of insurance M&A and managing of insurance companies. I don't know that that could be further from e-commerce if you tried. But I also got to work, with a lot of brands that the company was acquiring, and that's sort of where I got my taste, both for e-commerce and also for B2B, for manufacturing and distribution. For anyone who's familiar with B2B and familiar with manufacturing and distribution, you'll know there's a lot of M&A that goes on in the space, a lot of inorganic growth, a lot of acquisition, and so I got to work with a number of different brands when I was there, and that's sort of where I got my taste for e-commerce, for digital transformation, and also for B2B. I then joined BigCommerce. Initially, I joined BigCommerce actually to work with Feedonomics. Feedonomics was BigCommerce's first big acquisition. For those of you who don't know and aren't familiar with it, it is the number one platform for syndicating product data to advertising channels and marketplaces, used by 30% of the IR 1000. Really, really cool product. And I was brought on actually to look after that integration, given all my experience
Wow.
in M&A. It was a lot of fun, moved very fast. It was great, actually. I remember working some very long nights. And then I got to come back to my passion for manufacturing and distribution as I shifted into B2B. And we at BigCommerce really made B2B our kind of number one strategy. So my career has been a little bit of a winding path as I made my way to really focus on e-commerce and in particular B2B. But as I've stepped through from banking to private equity and then here at BigCommerce on the operating side, I should say. It's been a great path and led me to what I think right now is one of the most exciting places to be, which is not just e-commerce, but it's B2B e-commerce, and it's B2B e-commerce at BigCommerce.
Very, very nice. And I don't think that's a Texas accent that I hear.
What gave you that impression? I am wearing my boots. I can't show you that because they're under the desk. I am not Texan, although I do live in Austin, Texas. I have been here for 5 years though, which I think that counts as an honorary something. My daughter is Texan. She was born here. But no, I'm originally from London, but I love it here in Austin, Texas. Right
Oh.
now, it's bright and sunny, and that's basically every single day of the year here in Austin. So it's great.
Yes. Although London's been quite hot recently, the last couple of years, it's a far cry from Austin weather. Far
That,
cry. That's cool.
you're right. The weather in London is definitely getting better, but is nothing like it is being here in Austin. Summers of 100, 110. Everyone says you're mad. How can you survive? And I say go and try a summer in London where it's cold and rainy and you don't see the sun. That's much worse.
Yeah. It's awesome. Well, I always love seeing you at the shows and the events. We kind of see each other pretty regularly. A lot of people are aware of kind of the e-commerce space and some of the platform names, aware of BigCommerce. But folks don't really. One of the kind of most the things that people just aren't aware of is learning about B2B commerce, right? I think it's not as sexy as direct to consumer brands, but it really is a key piece for manufacturers and distributors that are wanting to transact and sell to their trading partners. So why don't you kind of tell me a little bit about what B2B commerce is?
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you a little bit about B2B e-commerce. I can tell you a little bit about e-commerce, BigCommerce as well. And actually, I've got a couple of slides here that might be useful to sort of tee this up. But for those who aren't familiar with BigCommerce, we're the leading B2B commerce platform. We're purpose-built for manufacturers and distributors. We have some incredible brands on the platform who are utilizing us to help drive operational efficiency, drive revenue growth across all of their brands in their portfolio. Um, B2B e-commerce is a little bit different from D2C and B2C e-commerce, though. Today, around 18% of transactions in the US, B2B transactions, occur online. That's actually in line with where B2C is today. The difference is in the growth rate, though. That's growing at 2 times the rate that B2C online transactions are. So by 2030, that 18% is going to flip to something like 40%. That's huge growth. And that's what B2B e-commerce at right now is all about. We're going through this transition, almost revolution, where manufacturers and distributors are realizing that they can use e-commerce to completely revolutionize the way that they do business with their customers. They can optimize that process of taking an order. They can optimize that process of tracking an order, of returning a product, and they can move that online, which to them frees up their sales team to go and do more customer facing, higher leverage activities, driving cross sell, upsell, finding new customers. And so we're at a magical age for B2B e-commerce. It's a fantastic time to be involved in the industry.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Those are great points there. It's just so interesting, as I'm on my journeys, like you'll run into 100-person manufacturers, 200-person manufacturers that still write their orders on paper and like for somebody to key in somewhere else. And so anytime you do that, I mean, it just seems like the world is changing, right? Like people want to order when they want to order. It could be midnight, it could be Sunday morning, it could be any time. And so, like driving, you've got to create other channels to open up those transactions other than just talking to somebody on the phone or over email.
I've got an incredible story for you about that, Ethan, actually. So we've got a seller on BigCommerce. They sell wholesale books. Their average order value is around $1,500. They've been on BigCommerce for a couple of years. And to your point, prior to being on BigCommerce, the only way you could transact was picking up the phone or sending an email to their sales team. Now that they're online, they can take orders 24/7 from anywhere across the US because they can distribute anywhere across the US. They came in one Monday morning to find $1 million order in their BigCommerce site. $1 million. Just incredible. I think if you go back 10 years, no one would be willing to place that size of order through a site. But someone had, and they went and obviously followed up with the customer. They'd found them on Google. They had liked what they saw, and they placed that $1 million order on a Sunday evening. And on Monday, they came in to find that order. Can you imagine being that B2B business that couldn't previously have taken that order and now you can? So to your point, you're now open to business anytime to anywhere that you can distribute. And that's, I think, really, really exciting. Obviously, that's just the revenue growth side. There's a whole operational efficiency side as well that we can touch on.
Huge, 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 huge. So, in terms of the B2B edition, it's a specialized edition of BigCommerce, right? So it's kind of a subset of features and functionality that are specific for B2B merchants, correct?
That's correct. And I can talk a little bit more about that. So maybe if we head back to a slide, there's slide 3 maybe of the ones that I was showing. Well, this one's perfect. Yeah. And when you think about what B2B businesses are trying to achieve, what problems are they trying to solve? Ultimately, They're looking to sell more. They're looking to improve profitability. They want to streamline operations and scale faster. So I want to reach more customers. We just touched on that, right? That's that bulk bookstore example of reaching a new customer through online. Improving profitability. I don't need my sales team answering questions about where is that order, about how to process that return. It should all be automated. And I streamline that front to back with operations, right? So I plug my BigCommerce B2B edition storefront into everything that I'm using on the back end, my ERP, maybe my CPQ, my CRM. And that then allows me to scale faster, whether that's selling into new regions, through new brands, etc. And we are able to do that because we have B2B functionality out of the box. We understand what it takes to be a manufacturer distributor that's selling online, whether that's customer specific pricing or catalogs, whether that's invoicing or quoting on the front end, on the back end, creating bill of materials and requisition lists, payment on terms with credit, easy reordering with CSV uploads, and so much more. And what we've done here at BigCommerce is we've built that into what we call the buyer portal. It is the most beautiful looking B2B front end of any e-commerce platform out there, and it's incredibly fast to deploy onto your e-commerce site. So you don't have to think, oh, what should it look like when a buyer wants to create a quote or create a requisition list? We've built all of that for you out of the box, ready to go. So you can get online faster, on time, on budget, and start selling, start growing, start realizing those operational efficiencies as well.
That's great. That's great. What's an ideal merchant or manufacturer distributor look like for somebody that would want to engage and build out a site like this?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I kind of prefaced that, right, we have at the beginning, today there are around 18% of transactions that are going through e-commerce. There's actually about 30 to 40% of US manufacturers and distributors that aren't even transacting online yet, right? Prime target. They need to be getting online. They need to be selling online. And at the other end of the scale, those digitally mature businesses that could be doing tens of billions of dollars are often on outdated custom platforms that maybe they've built themselves and are still running. And BigCommerce is right for everyone across that entire gamut. From that mom and pop shop. Actually, that bulk bookstore I mentioned is a mom and pop shop, all the way up to businesses doing tens of billions of dollars in total revenue and kind of everything in between. We can really support all of those businesses, all of those complex use cases, right from I'm getting online for the first time to I'm digitally mature and I just need to I need to rethink how I'm selling online to optimize my workflows and grow. And that's across a lot of verticals. We have lots of customers in the health science space, automotive, HVAC and plumbing, electricals, and kind of everything in between.
So it's a little bit of everything, right? So, one of the things that we like to think about when suggesting BigCommerce for B2B is like we don't want to get into a place where we have to build everything from scratch, right? And I think this is a common thing that I say all the time is like, listen, if we can get you like 80 to 90% of the way there, it's just sometimes that last 10% is the most expensive. It takes a project from $250,000 to $1 million, right? Like it's just like it really can blow it out. So we want people to really if they can work and get started, but you guys provide like a whole basically starter kit out of the box that it a developer or an agency can work with to create a full end-to-end solution for you, right?
Yeah, and that's sort of how we think about it. We like to use the term internally of democratizing B2B e-commerce. We've built tools that 5 years ago were only available to the largest manufacturer, distributor, enterprise businesses who could afford to build them. And what we've done is build them out of the box. Here you go. Here is how a B2B business, a manufacturer distributor, can process a quote, can have an invoice portal on their site, can have approval workflows built into their site and company approval workflows, etc. But B2B businesses are all different. They have different workflows. And so you need to be able to customize that workflow to your specific needs and requirements. Our out of the box is not going to meet necessarily everything that you want, but what we do is we provide a higher jumping off point. That means you're not having, as you quite rightly put there, you're not having to build 50%. You just have to build that 10%, right? I don't have to build a base functionality for this is a quick reorder or a CSV upload. Instead, I'm building in that very bespoke workflow that might be how we deal with RMA, how we deal with returns, how we deal with warranties. And you can build that into your e-commerce site whilst not having to think about the basics.
That's great. That's great. I mean, I talked to a lot of distributors, over the course of a year, and, their margins are razor thin, at times. Right. And so, I can tell you 10 years ago, one of the biggest holdbacks from distributors getting into this game was just the cost and the lift to create this platform and get going with it. Right. So, democratizing things has really, really helped the marketplace in terms of being able to create those solutions and really kind of fit within the framework, the cost framework that works for a distributorship that may have kind of pretty set margins on their products.
And that's also another great area, Ethan, where B2B and B2C e-commerce differ. So generally, when you think about B2C e-commerce, it's a play for improving conversion, right? It's all about getting a product in a cart and converting and checking out. Well, in B2B, I have long-term relationships with my customers. That LTV is much higher. Once they're signed up, I'm an approved through their procurement process. Obviously, if I'm not providing the service, they'll leave, they'll move somewhere else. But often these are relationships that have been around for 5+ years. And so on the B2C side, it's that revenue growth, it's that conversion. But on B2B, there's a lot more that can be done from an operational efficiency perspective, right? There are cost savings to be had by bringing in the right e-commerce platform. And that really helps distributors. And that's why distributors are moving online much faster than those manufacturers who have a bit more margin to play around with, because the distributors don't. But when they come onto BigCommerce, they can then start to automate that order taking. We've got a customer out in Australia, AHP Dental. When they came onto BigCommerce, 25% of their orders occurring online. A year later, 75% of orders. That was worth 6 full-time employees worth of order taking, right? Imagine as a distributor being able to save that. And that doesn't mean you cut headcount. It means you can repurpose that sales team to be out there in the field focusing on finding new customers or on cross-selling into your current base. And so you're sort of spot on there. E-commerce drives or can drive some of that, the ability of distributors to get that margin back that today is being really squeezed.
Well, I think that there's just a lot of opportunity in B2B, especially when you start to have more of a B2C mindset, like for that. A lot of times back in the day, people would kind of take the starter theme that came with the platform out of the box, slap a logo in it, and kind of have a Helvetica font and kind of move on. But nowadays, it's like, how are we plugging this B2B store into your CRM? How are we plugging this B2B store into Klaviyo and starting to automate things like win-back campaigns for people that haven't ordered in certain periods? How are you communicating with people that have ordered consumable type products where there's a much more frequent reordering basis, and set up automations around that? And so when you start to kind of put all those pieces together and kind of crawl, walk, run, like you're essentially leveraging technology to drive sales within the organization, instead of taking handwriting orders over the phone, where we're going to have errors and problems with that. So there's so much opportunity within the B2B space, especially when you start to really think like, hey, how can I do this differently than other people? And
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, Ethan. There's a lot to be learned from the way that B2C businesses operate. And that does not mean that B2B e-commerce is the same as B2C e-commerce, but we can learn from the pains that those direct-to-consumer businesses have already gone through, and we can take the best practices. So BigCommerce, we have on our platform the largest independent distributor of building materials in the UK. A very large business, $1 billion plus in revenue. They launched their site on BigCommerce, and they did it with one of our partners that has allowed them to specialize and personalize the experience through their site. Right, they're selling things like building materials and tools and equipment. If I hit their site and I start searching for tools, and then I make a purchase, they remember that purchase that I've made and they start to personalize the experience that I get, not just on the site, but across all the interactions that I'm having with them based on that purchase. What do I mean by that? Um, I'm all of my tools down in my garage, they're all Ryobi. I stick with a brand. I have the batteries, I have the chargers, I'm not changing. Well, actually, that's the same for a lot of folks out there, not just consumers like me, but also on the laboring side, right? For the contractors as well. And so now when you hit the site, that search starts to be smart. If I type in power drill, it's going to respond with power drills, but it's going to put the Ryobi results at the top because it knows that's what I'm looking for, right? Or when I start searching for landscaping and I'm looking for landscaping items, now the emails that I'm receiving are showing me landscaping products or giving me offers on landscaping products. The same thing they do through text messaging. And also when I hit the site, the homepage actually starts to change and it will show me products that are relevant to the searches that I've made. And so, to your point, Ethan, B2B is a long way behind B2C, but it is catching up.
It's catching up.
We're starting to learn.
Catching up. It's catching up. So if you were, let's just say, like I've already created a B2B store, and I'm down that path a year or so. What's something that I should be thinking about, like something more advanced that I should be thinking about that maybe I haven't gotten into at this point?
Yeah, that's always interesting. So you kind of touched it. You said crawl, walk, run. I like to add fly onto the end
Okay.
there. But that's really the process I think that most B2B businesses have to go through, right? If they aren't transacting online, now they're transacting online. They've got a product catalog there, but maybe I can't actually select products. I can't transact yet. Well, think about how you can make that site transactional. Okay, now I'm transacting. Maybe that's your customers. They've been online for a year, they're transacting, you can purchase products, but the quoting process still happens through an offline order form. Well, let's move that online. Now we've got our CPQ maybe tied straight into BigCommerce. So the minute a customer creates their own quote through my website, it's getting fired straight into my CPQ or into my CRM, and my sales team can respond. Right, we've made that process so much quicker. It's not happening over email. It's not happening over text message. It's not happening through fax, which, believe it or not, some are still using. What about payments? How am I thinking about payments and invoicing? Often invoicing is this forgotten stepchild of B2B. It sits out
Yeah.
there kind of on the side. Oh, well, finance deal with that. You whatever, hopefully they pay. Well, no. Let's pull that into my online site and have invoices there, payable, right? The longer my sellers are spending on my site, the more likely they are to purchase from me. It's a good thing, right? And then I can start to be better at managing credit. They can see how much credit they have available, etc. So that's always something I like to explore. But if I had to pick one thing, it's something some B2B businesses are doing, but many are not. It is ads. Believe it or not, whilst 30-40% of those businesses aren't transacting online, those that are not driving traffic to their site the way that they should be. They might be thinking about SEO and articles, but they are not advertising online. We've got some very large customers that they're just not doing it. And the truth is, in B2C, the ROAS has really been squeezed. Cost per click has gone up. It's more difficult to advertise. But often in these B2B spaces, they're a lot more niche. I'm selling HVAC parts or electrical parts. The fight if you like, for my keywords is it's not as aggressive. And so my cost per click is actually much lower. And so often the advice I give is start driving more traffic to your site. If you're able to show pricing, then you can do it. You can start to advertise, through Google Shopping, and you should consider it because you can drive customers to your site. And for you, unlike B2C, where let's say I get an advert, I get driven to a trainer brand, and I make a one-off purchase of a set of sneakers, as you guys would say in the US, not trainer sneakers. I'm learning. I'm slowly learning. Um, I make
The
the in
Queen's English,
B2B
buddy. The Queen's English.
exactly. In B2B, I'm a lifetime customer, right?
Right.
And actually, when I compare that lifetime value to the cost of acquisition, it's a no-brainer. I should be funding those ads.
What are you kind of seeing in the marketplace? There's kind of two schools of thought with this, right? Like we're seeing some manufacturers and distributors want to leverage the B2B store as their main website, right? And maybe they hide certain parts of that, the add to cart button until you've logged in or other things. And then other people tend to want to put these B2B stores on a subdomain that maybe aren't as publicly available to the world. And blocking it from Google. What are you kind of seeing in your journeys and hearing from these folks, about that issue?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's channel conflict. And we come up against that a lot in B2B. If I'm a manufacturer, well, I don't want to be competing with my distributors. They would get very upset, right? If a customer can hit my site and make a purchase that actually should be going through the distributor. There are a lot of ways around that, right? We've got lots of manufacturers who are pointing their customers who hit their site to a specific distributor, maybe launching a marketplace where the distributors can actually be selling those products specifically, and they send the customer out based on where their location and who their nearest distributor is. So lots of ways to kind of tackle that. It really depends on the distributor or manufacturer, usually the distributor in this case, their right to show pricing, hide pricing. What does their agreement allow them to do? But for that example I mentioned, where you'd be, selling online, pushing ad channels online, if you can display that MSRP, well, you can show the MSRP. You just have your bespoke pricing, your customer buyer specific pricing behind a login, but show the MSRP so that your site is visible to the world. They can create a cart, and then maybe they create a quote and send that to your sales team and say, hey, I'd like a discount. I'd like to have customer specific pricing. So we see it both ways. I think there are ways to handle that channel conflict that will enable distributors to open up that funnel and at least get those customers
Right.
into their CRM and start working those leads.
It's also one of the things that's really intriguing to me. I remember a specific instance when I built our offices just a couple of years ago, and there was a specific lighting pendant that I wanted for our cafe area. And I found who manufactured it, and I reached out to them, and they were like, well, we don't sell direct. You have to buy through a distributor. And I'm like, okay. And so, do you have a name? Yeah, such and such. Well, I called the distributor, and they said, well, we don't sell direct. You have to call like the reseller. And I'm like, well, can you give me a name of a reseller? They were like, no. And I was like, finally I argued with them enough, and I was like, give me something, like, or else I'm just gonna go I'm just gonna not even worry about this. And it's interesting to me how people don't make it easy to buy. And I'm not saying everyone has to open up direct to consumer channels on their B2B store, but I do think kind of leading people on how to buy your products is something that we see manufacturers not doing a great job with.
Could
In
not
general,
agree more. That kind
especially
of
some of these
B2B to
closed off
C.
industries. Like there's some kind of old school industries, things like, like design, interior design, and even for commercial lighting products and stuff, where it's all sold through, electricians and other local folks. And it's like, well, no, where can I buy this stuff? Because like no one local has it.
Yeah, that kind of B2B to C use case is really growing in popularity. You know, as a manufacturer, I want to control the experience that my end customer has. In this case, they created a pretty poor experience for you as the end consumer. Well, how do they improve that, right? How do they ensure that you get a great experience when you hit their site and find the product? They could direct you to the distributor. They could have the distributor list products or the end retailer list products directly in their site such that it's easy for you to get to the end product itself. Lots of different ways to do that. More recently, though, we've started to see manufacturers actually spin up e-commerce sites themselves for that end distributor or that end retailer. So true B2B to C. I, as a manufacturer, I'm going to create or at least give the ability for my retailers to have an out-of-the-box, one-click kind of e-commerce store that they can use to then sell online. And that store is going to be, it's going to have the right theming, it's going to have the right look and feel, the right branding, it's going to have the right products preloaded. We're seeing a lot more of that occur today. And that's especially true kind of in the franchising model. We see a lot of that as well. But yeah, there's not a great experience that you had. I'd be intrigued to know who that manufacturer is so we can reach out to them and explain to them how they should be doing it.
Well, I should have been a detective because I can find anything on Google, right? Like I'm just like I've got like PhD level Google finding skills of things that I'm looking for. But it is interesting when people aren't helpful in that process. If you are, if so, let's just say that this is something you're considering for 2025. I really want to take our manufacturing business. I'm a 100-year-old manufacturer. I've got 150, 200 employees, and I really am. I need to go to the next level and put a B2B buying system online. What's something they should be thinking about as they're going through that process of evaluation and research?
Yeah, it's really important to think this through. A lot of B2B businesses, they dive straight in and they don't really stop to consider what is it that my buyer wants? What is the process that they're going to go through when they're making purchases? And how do I improve that? And so the first thing to do is to stop and to think, okay, what does my customer buying process look like today and what should it look like into the future? But also to segment my customers. You don't want to get distracted by really complex buying workflows and processes and building those online when actually those don't account for the majority of your customers. And so segment your customers, first of all, understand their buying processes, work with sales to understand them, work with your customers to understand them, and then think about how can you bring those online? What platforms are going to help you deliver those processes online? That's really, really, really important. That's step one, right? Do that first. Then you've got to analyze your tech stack. Look at your digital maturity. Do I have the right pieces in the right places to be able to get my products where they need to go? Do I have a digital catalog? Right? The answer might be no. Maybe you've got to digitize your catalog first. Is my PIM able to connect directly into my e-commerce or my ERP? Maybe I've got to upgrade that first, or I need to do that together. And so start with the customer, then think about the tech stack, and then think about the skill set that you need. Do you have the right people in your organization to drive this forward? And if not, maybe you need to find a partner to work with, maybe like a Groove Commerce, who can come in and help to advise what best practice will look like.
Always happy. And by the way, anybody listening that wants to talk shop about this, I'm always happy to spend time and discuss those needs. Actually, it's one of my favorite things. Some of the things that I'm kind of pushing back, or at least trying to change perception on, is the fact that manufacturers and distributors need to really put some effort into making this kind of best of class, right? Because your buyers are using Amazon. They're buying from other places, right? So they actually have an expectation. I'm not saying you have to deliver like prime type shipping to your customers, but you need to have a frictionless site when you're getting into it. And so things like, if you've got more than a couple hundred products, having a best in class site search engine, right? Having an email product that may be out the commerce specific email product, right? That is that has deep integration into the platform that allows you to create automated flows and other things. And that may be different. Maybe you're using HubSpot Marketing Hub and you're using HubSpot CRM, right? But having a commerce specific tool to layer in for your B2B stores and to be able to communicate and send those automations is really key. We're starting to see a lot of folks getting into things like loyalty programs, right? Like often, that was the first thing that people would cut out in terms of from their B2B store versus their B2C store. But we're starting to see loyalty programs kind of creep into B2B much, much more. And then probably the last thing is just changing your mindset around content. What really drives me crazy, fucking nuts, is when you when you go to a reseller, when a reseller has better product photography and better product descriptions than the manufacturer. As a product that you create, I want to see you have the most up-to-date spec sheets. I want to see you have the most up-to-date instruction manuals, installation guide if needed, the best pictures. And I'm not talking about one grainy photo. I want to see a picture of the front, the back. Like, I want to see all of it, right? And I think that those are things that we're really pushing, within our client base and with our prospects to say, you got to take this up a notch and make it better, and you've got to just do better. Because if you do better, if you put more love and care and feeding into this, more people are going to discover and buy your products. It's just, it's very simple. It's very, very simple.
You make it sound so easy.
It's not. And again, that's the difference between good to great, right? Like it's often that last 20% is the hardest to get to. Anybody can put a catalog up online with a bunch of SKUs and names and prices, but it's like, where are you gonna get better with that?
And I think that really touches on something actually that we're seeing a lot more in B2B. Distribution, you said margins are getting squeezed, but also buyers are looking at where and asking themselves the question, where is this supplier, where is this distributor helping me run my business? Where are they adding value? And those B2B businesses, those manufacturers and distributors that are adding real value into that process, like you said, whether that's through having the most up-to-date tech specs, having the best salespeople who understand the product, maybe that will become, an AI helper on the site. That is what is going to drive loyalty into the future. It isn't just commoditized shopping. It's not just commoditized purchasing. It's about adding real value into that process, right? Maybe you put how-to videos for these products onto your site, and actually it's that keeps the customers coming back. When they have a concern, when they have a problem, when they don't understand how to use the product, they're coming to your site anyway. Well, they're going to make a purchase then, aren't they? You're going to become that de facto supplier that they use. I think that's, a really important point. We're seeing those manufacturers, distributors insert themselves earlier and earlier into that purchasing decision because they become the place for the buyer to get best practice, to understand how to use the product. So I think you're spot on.
Yeah, I think every manufacturer should have a video team and have some form of writing, either in-house or like part-time, your contract, whatever that is. But you need to start elevating your overall content. Some other things that I feel like important on a B2B site, showing inventory count and availability. And if that inventory is geographically based, showing where that inventory is geographically based, like shipping timeframes, fulfillment timeframes, any kind of information that you're gonna, again, like following along, like Amazon Prime has kind of ruined in many ways commerce. I hate to say it that way, but they've set a bar that everyone else has to get to, right? I'm gonna buy this and it's gonna be at my house tomorrow. Right. And so everybody kind of wants to know like these things. You can't do that with everything, of course. Like some products are made to order, all of that. But again, setting the right expectation, like with your end user, whether that be B2C or B2B, right? It's all about expectation setting.
Yeah, exactly. And to that kind of point that you made there, that could be, do I see the custom products that you build for me? Do I see those online and can I reorder them? Do I see the pricing that I expect? It sounds so simple, but if the pricing that I see online is not the same as the pricing that I get when I phone up the sales team, I can tell you where I'm going to be purchasing. It's not online. You mentioned kind of speed of delivery, right? Seeing the inventory. Well, maybe I need these five products tomorrow. The rest of them can come next week. Can I create those consignments and can I pick the date on which they're going to be shipped, which is going to help me reduce costs? When I get to shipping, can I put in my shipping code such that it hits my account and not yours because I've got special rates? How are we going to handle LTL? How are we going to handle liftgate fees? There's so much complexity in B2B that you don't really have to think about in B2C that has to be handled on or in the supplier's manufacturer's website. I talked about, building construction materials. Am I ordering an ounce or a pound or a kilo? That matters. And can I order in those increments and how easy is it for me to do that, right? Am I ordering a
Right.
whole pallet? Am I ordering one or two? Can I control all of that through the site? Really, really important. And then when I hit that checkout, can I pay on ACH? Can I, can I vault that ACH? So it's really quick and easy for me to check out next
Yeah.
time. And, for non-US folks, that's just bank transfer, right? ACH is just bank transfer, but the majority of transactions in that B2B world, they're occurring through bank transfer. That's how they're being paid, not on a credit card. So we can reduce those fees. So much to consider there. You're right. And to me, that's where B2B and B2C differ, right? Like those kind of areas. And then you get into things like approval workflows, right? We know today there's Gartner data out there. I think on average, B2B purchase is 5 to 10 approvals. Well, where do those approvals go today? Do they happen offline in email? Can they happen on your site? If they can happen on your site, well, you're keeping your buyer on your site for longer. Therefore, they're more likely to check out, to transact. Can I create a list of products and then have my manager approve them? Really important.
It's great. So what's coming next for B2B at BigCommerce, right? Like can you share anything that you're working on or anything interesting where you think things are going next over with the BC crew?
I can. We've got a really, really exciting roadmap for 2025. And we've actually got some interesting things coming right at the end of 2024 as well, even though we've only got a few weeks left. So, right as we enter the year, we're going to release our new multi-company hierarchy. So we're really focused there on those that are selling to big, large
Mm-hmm.
organizations that have complex buying structures, right? I might be selling into Costco. I'm selling into Costco in the US. I'm selling into Costco regionally. I'm selling into specific cities. And I need my buyers to be able to log into my site at each of those specific levels, right? And have specific advanced roles and permissions based on what they should be able to do when they log in. That's actually going into beta really, really soon. And then GA for everyone early in 2025. So I'm really excited about that release. And then as we look further ahead, we're focused on the sales rep. There's no one more important. And actually, I'll be told off, I'll be scolded by my operations and finance customers here. But I think there's no one more important than the sales team at a manufacturer or distributor. I'm sorry, finance folks. I'm sorry, operations folks. But
These controllers and finance folks always, add themselves. The sales, all of us salespeople that sell are just a very unruly bunch, and the controllers and the CFOs always invite themselves on the president's club trips along with the salespeople. So
yeah,
we can poo poo on them all the time. Sorry if you sign our checks in advance.
exactly. They sign the checks. They want to come on the President's Club trip. Well, we are focused on making it easier to get on that President's Club trip than it has ever been, right? Because we know those salespeople, that's what they want to do. They want the easy button, right? So what does that mean? Well, we're looking at how do we weave AI into quoting and quoting responses to make it faster and
Okay.
easier to get a response out to a customer. right? So they've reached out, they've asked for that quote. Well, today you might be typing up a response. How can we get AI to help write that response, suggest products? That's going to help you convert. So I'm really excited about that. And then building specific tooling for that sales team so that they can much more easily manage all of their customers and surfacing particular areas where that salesperson needs to focus. Oh, you received these three quotes overnight, quote requests, but this one's the biggest. This one's the most important. Or, by the way, they haven't responded to that in 5 days. You need to check up on it. You need to look at it. Surfacing that kind of information to our sales team, making it, not our sales team, sorry, the sales teams of our manufacturers and distributors, making their job easier to do is where we're sort of focused in 2025. And I'm really excited about that because it will have a meaningful impact
Yeah.
on the revenue that that sales team can generate and hopefully how many people get to go to President's Club, which is what we all really care about.
That's all. We just want to go to Cancun. We just want to go
Yeah.
to we just want to go to Cancun. That's it. That's it. So what's kind of one thing, if you could give one tip to a manufacturer or a merchant or brand or distributor in order to grow in 2025, what would that be?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mentioned, advertising, which often B2B businesses don't do or neglect. And I think that still sits up there as sort of number one. But if I have to suggest, something else that I would look at and consider and evaluate is automation. Right? As you think about your tech stack, as you think about how you engage with your customers, think about how much of those interactions you can automate and then you can personalize. As we said, right kind of at the top, we're learning from B2C. We're learning the best practices of selling online in the B2B world. We're getting there. Um, Personalization is going to be, I think, the hot button topic for 2025. And often
Yep.
in B2B, that's sort of people kind of look at you and frown. What do you mean? How do I? If you can, adjust those search results, if you can, as you kind of alluded to, change your marketing strategy such that that email is relevant to the products that that buyer is looking at, they're considering, there are some real gains to be had there from a growth perspective, right? Trying to drive up that conversion rate. And when I said we don't care about conversion rate as much in B2B, but
I do.
if we can
I
service,
do.
you do. Good, good. That's what I like. But if we can drive that conversion rate up by giving our customers the right information when they're looking for it, or even preempting the information
Yeah.
that we know they're going to be looking for, that's a real growth lever. So if you're not doing, kind of marketing today, you don't have a marketing suite of tools, you should be looking at it. And if you're not selling online, of course, you've got to start selling online first. But that I think is where there's a lot of low-hanging fruit out there for our B2B businesses that aren't really managing that in an efficient way.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Lance, thank you. It was great spending time with you here today. For those of you, again, that are listening on audio only, go up to our YouTube channel at Groove Commerce and look at the video version of this. If you want to like, subscribe, or comment, it would be very, very helpful. And by the way, if you think you'd be a great guest on E-commerce Masters, hit us up through the socials or through the contact form on our website. Lance, I really, really appreciate you coming on today and spending time together. It's a great conversation about B2B, and I look forward to having you on again, and we can maybe go into an even deeper dive later on in 2025. And so thank you again for spending your time with us today.
I love it. Thank you, Ethan, for having me on. It's been a great discussion, and I look forward to coming back next year.
All right. Thanks, Lance. See you soon.